And as the facilitator of this panel, we'd like to introduce Marcia Trajano. Marcia Trajano is the president and one of the founders of the Solitude Center for Spiritual Living from Tennessee. A former board member of the U.S. Spiritist Federation, Marcia has taught and participated in several studies of the psychology book series by Joanna De Angelis. Currently, Marcia is one of the facilitators of the weekly program Psychology and Spirituality. Very in, of course, with the team here, aired by the USSF, and by Mansão do Caminho US channels. With you, Marcia.
Welcome, Marcia, please. I think Ricardo mentioned 2 or 3 times. Don't forget, write your questions. This is a great opportunity for you to ask the experts on psychology and spirituality. Write your questions, you in the audience, physically and digitally. So please do so. And I would like to make sure that we do a warm welcome to 2 amazing people that I got to learn really well this past year. So Anahy, Dr. Fonseca, could you please come to? So who is Dr. Anahy Fonseca? She's a psychiatrist. She's a member of the Psychiatric Association Rio Grande do Sul in the south of Brazil, where she's also a coordinator and a founding member of its Department of Psychiatry. I keep messing up, sorry. Psychiatry and Spirituality. She's also a member of the Brazilian Psychiatric Association and of the section of Religiosity, Spirituality, and Psychiatry of the World Psychiatry Association. She's a Jungian analyst, supervisor, and she's the coordinator of the Department of Analytical Psychology and Spirituality of the Jungian Association of Brazil. Dr. Fonseca is a member of the Spiritist Medical Association of Rio Grande do Sul, and she's also a member of this Spiritist Medical Association of Brazil, where she teaches Spiritist Psychology of Joanna De Angelis. Thank you for being here. So, thank you. Jussara Korngold, could you please? So Jussara, I think most of you know her, but for those who don't, let me go ahead and introduce her as well. Jussara is currently the General Secretary of the International Spiritist Council, and she is the Vice President of the United States Spiritist Federation. She's the founder and the president of the Spiritist Group of New York and the Spiritist Alliance for Books. Ms. Korngold is fluent in many languages, starting with Portuguese, French, English, Spanish, and she's an accomplished international speaker, published author, and a translator. So with that, I will join you. And I would like to take a moment to address what we're here to do. Is that okay? So before we start with questions and answers, I wanted to just, first and foremost, say it's truly a pleasure, it's an honor to be here. And I'm especially touched because if you don't remember, today's September 30th. What does it mean, September 30th? Well, it's the last day of Yellow September, a globally recognized month dedicated to mental health awareness and suicide prevention. So for us to be here as spiritists, as psychologists, psychiatrists, and human beings, it is really important to be here to have this conversation. So thank you for this opportunity. And I'm here to really pause and ask all of us, what can we do? What can we do that will make a difference, not only this month, today, or future, right? What can we do? And I would like to just quote five little things that the National Institute of Mental Health will teach us. So I want us to really get that ingrained in our brain. So for you to know that you can do something at a minimum, five steps is starts by asking. If the person needs to talk, talk. Ask those difficult questions. Are you thinking about, right? Keep them safe. If suicide prevention is the most important thing for you, for your family, for your loved ones, and anyone that you may encounter, make sure they're safe. Are there opportunities for physical harm? Remove them, right? So it's one thing that you can do. The most important, in my opinion, is really to be there, be present, listen carefully, listen with your heart. Do not multitask, be there. Help them connect. There is plenty of help. And here in the US, 988 is the number that you can call for suicide prevention. Okay? And most of all, stay connected. If the person that came to you was helped, check on them. It's not a point in time. It is a struggle that many of us go through. But with that, I would like to go to the next slide because I'm very impressed. I'm really, my ego is really, my ego has expanded a lot this past year. And I just want to share with you the psychology and spirituality in numbers as we see. Before we start our conversation proper, I just wanted to say this is a project that started many years ago. I was not even remotely close to being the picture, but with the mentorship of Divaldo Pereira Franco, most important with Joanna De Angelis as spiritual mentor, but also with Dr. Gelson Roberto in AMI, Brazil. This project was born to bring the teachings, the point of connection between spirituality and psychology to the English speaking public. So with that, we started a what we call a podcast like weekly conversations, and many of those who are here present have already been part of those conversations. And for you, I thank you. And we are here to share those numbers. It's quite impressive, if in my very humble opinion, right? It's a when I look at almost 50,000 views in a year, um, about yeah, yeah, yeah. It's really not even a year, right? Started in February, so it's quite impressive that we are conduit, all of us, right? Conduit to this very important message. And I wanted to say we want to thank the U.S. Spiritist Federation for being a sponsor for this program. Also, TV Mansão do Caminho, that is the second of three distribution channels. And most important, all of us, this community of human beings that we're here together, regardless of your station in life or your role professionally. And I ask you, why is this important? There's so much information out there. Why are we even creating another podcast to talk about spirituality and psychology? If you have a question, please send. We have a panel to do later, but it's really an opportunity to disseminate this entire body of work. We call it a psychology series, a psychological collection that was authored by Joanna De Angelis, 16 books, and in close collaboration with Divaldo Pereira Franco. Beautiful, beautiful books, many of them already translated into English. And in this very informal setting, I know I'm very formal right now, but it's a very informal conversational setting. We're here this today and in this program discussing profound concepts, psychological concepts, and also we are able to provide an opportunity to confront. There's a lot of confrontation, a lot of analysis, correlation, comparisons of what does it mean from a psychology perspective, but also from a spiritual perspective. So with grateful appreciation to the two of you and to all of those who contribute, let's go ahead and get started. So if you go to the next slide, as you can see here, we are, the two of you cannot see, but we are talking about, oh, that's right, thank you, Alan Kardec. We're talking about Sigmund Freud. We're talking about Carl Gustav Jung and this very amazing person, Joanna De Angelis, this amazing spirit. And we're also going to talk a little bit about this weaving through, not only historically speaking, the teachings that we have access, but also concepts such as spirituality, psychology, psychiatry, the very important aspect of what is the collective unconscious, and something that most of us don't think much about it, but the activistic heritage that we all carry. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Are we ready? All right. So Anahy, I'm going to put you in the spot. Is your microphone on? Awesome.
Now it is, I think.
Yes, yes. So Anahy, with your background, can you tell us a little bit about the path? We're talking about a little bit of history, right? Between Sigmund Freud, Gustav Jung, and Joanna De Angelis.
Wow. So first of all, I'm very happy to be here. It's a pleasure to be with my two friends and with all new friends. And one of the things is that why psychology calls us so much, right? I was looking in the listening to the prayer, and when our friend said to be together in hearts and minds, right? So what does that mean to be together? We think when someone tells us that that okay, we are together now in this energy and with everybody at home that is watching us. But what does that mean in a psychological and spiritual point of view? We have the teachings of Jesus, right? 2000 more years ago, and we have difficulty to this day to understand the real. I say that Jesus' teachings was a non-dual teaching, because it was the teachings to tell us how we go back to the source of life, the transcendent one, the unity, God. Okay, and we all have this difficulty to understand, but Spiritist knowledge, more than 150 years ago, is bringing to us, especially in the West, and is bringing to us a renewal of and a more deeper understanding of these teachings. So let's go. And I know that we are going to be talking together, but I wanted to ask you not to try to understand what we are talking only with our minds, but to try to understand and to tune in with your hearts. Because our minds, and now I'll get to Freud, our minds is pretty much our ego, right? The center of our consciousness that is developing here, okay, as we grow to the life cycle, and that is trying to adapt. So our ego is very worried. For instance, Marcia and Jussara and myself, our egos are very worried of course, as anyone would be, to talk to people all around the world that is watching us, and we do the podcast like. But of course, our ego is going to be preoccupied and is going to be watchful. Are they liking me or not? How many likes we will have in the? Oh, I'm not in the social media, by the way, but anyway, who is how much? How many likes I will have in the social media and this and that? This is our ego, and the ego is what Freud, decades ago, started to explore, okay? And he discovered our personal unconscious and many other things. Everybody knows a little bit of Freud nowadays, right? The ego, the I, id, yes, id in English, and the superego, right? So we know a little bit of our Oedipus complexes, a little bit or a lot about our Oedipus complex, and about our mechanism of defense, the mechanism of defense of the ego. This is all very, very important because it's the starter, let's say, in psychology of our understanding of ourselves, right? And this is very, very important because what does Jesus say like 2,000 years ago? Love your neighbor as yourself, right? So, what does that mean, really, in psychological and spiritual terms? To how can I love my neighbor? How can I recognize the other one as a person that I don't even know, as a person that I must love? What does that mean? And how do I love myself? Do I love myself trying to be a celebrity that it's so much nowadays, right? Oh, should I be in the YouTube channel, make my own channel, and be in the Instagram or whatever, doing saying interesting things for people, for them to love me? Is that how I love myself? No, that's I'm quite certain that that was not what Jesus was telling us how to love ourselves. So going back to Freud, so Freud,
One of the angels explores beautifully just what you said. But back to Freud.
okay. So back to Freud, it's beginning in psychology of this understanding of ourselves. And I do believe, not that he knew about that, Freud was very not in religion, as you all know, and spirituality, and we can later. He was creating psychoanalysis, but in his soul, because he, as all of us, has a soul, is a spirit who was reincarnated, even if he wouldn't acknowledge that in his time, okay, in his ego when he was here in a personality. But of course, that was the beginning of our understanding of ourselves, was the beginning of the unconscious, the understanding of the unconscious. Of course, he stayed in the personal unconscious, but that was the beginning. So I do think Freud gave us a lot of contributions, and Joanna de Angelis talked about Freud in her writings, because he started, these teachings of us understanding ourselves, recognizing ourselves, so that we can love ourselves. But then comes Jung, okay? Everybody knows that they, at certain point, like for a little more than 10 years, I think they were very, very close. And then after some time, they split apart, and because Freud acknowledged only the personal unconscious and what he called the libido. For him, it would be the sexual drive, okay? And Jung, whose father was Protestant pastor, and a lot of things. And his mother was a medium, by the way. So a lot of what we call nowadays in the medical field anomalous experiences, that it's the name that we call spiritual experiences for research purposes. So a lot of those issues were happening in in Jung's life since childhood, his childhood. And he wanted very much to understand the religion and the way the psyche, he started naming not the mind as and Freudians to this day call, but our psyche. Our psyche is, as I'm quite sure most of you know, in ancient Greek, the soul. So we say that Jung brought the soul back to psychology. And then comes Jung studying the soul, the psyche, and what we call the religion's function of the psyche, that we can all talk about that later. And he goes, let's say, further than Freud, and he discovers what he called the collective unconscious. I know all of you must know this term because very popular in the United States and also in European countries. But so the collective unconscious nowadays we call the transpersonal dimension of the psyche. I'm not going to talk about that right now, but just for you to have an idea. And for us as spiritists, it's very easy to understand. The transpersonal, so goes beyond the personal, beyond the ego, dimension of the psyche. So when we are talking about that, uh, I think Jung kind of realized, but he didn't want to go that further. Sorry. So what happens is that he talks about the soul as connecting two dimensions, the biological, so our body, our impulses and drives, and the spiritual dimension. So the psyche, our soul, is like caught between these two dimensions for Jung. And he talks a little bit about the spirit, a lot about the spirit, but in connection with the psyche. So what happens is that Jung doesn't go all the way and doesn't talk about the spirit. And then comes Joana de Angelis with our dear Divaldo Pereira Franco and all the Spiritist knowledge, by the way, because previously to Joana de Angelis, we have Chico Xavier, and we had a lot of mediums, but in Brazil especially, with all the beautiful series of André Luiz and Emmanuel. So bringing to us all this better understanding of ourselves, actually. What happens to the spirit after death and all this. But then comes Joana, that is bringing her contributions to Spiritist knowledge about psychology and about further developing, I think, and Jussara was going to be talking about that, Allan Kardec's also writings about all the Spiritism and about psychology in the sense that we are the immortal spirits. So we have our own evolution and ways that we evolve. So this is also psychology, because psychology is the study of the soul, of the spirit. So then I just wanted, as Marcia asked me, to give you this
I'm weaving through, right?
yes, this
Yeah.
update as I see Joana de Angelis' teachings, and and I think all of the teachers, we try to be nice teachers of Joana de Angelis. We have to study a lot. I myself went to study Jungian because I was very, very Freudian. I was trained in Freudian psychotherapy. Sorry. And because medical doctors, for us, Freud terms are very easy to understand because it's the way that the medical personnel understand, looking always for symptoms, for what makes us, ill, and how we can fix that. But then comes Jung, and I actually enter in contact with Jung through Gelson's teachings in Joana de Angelis. And then comes Jung, and I said, wow, I really in Brazil, I hope, and I know that here in the United States and in Europe, you guys study much more Jung, even as a cultural thing. But in Brazil, Jung, to this day, well, now we have the Brazilian Jungian Association and other Jungian associations, so we are getting there. But in Brazil, especially in medicine, we study a lot of Freud. And we even don't study Jung at all, So I started studying Jung with Divaldo, Joana, and Gelson, and the other colleagues and psychologists. So I went to to be an analyst at my training because of Joana de Angelis, not because of the medical field. And I'm very proud of that. I'm very grateful to this beautiful spirit. So I just wanted for this to start to give you that Freud for me is the study of the mind. Jung is the study of the spirit, the soul, the psyche, and Joana de Angelis is the study of the spirit, all from the psychological point of view.
Awesome, awesome. So we had that storyline, the timeline. But Jussara, I'm going to give you the amazing gift to talk to us about how does Kardec and Joana de Angelis get together.
So good morning, everyone. And first of all, I would like to acknowledge all of those that have made it possible for us to be here today. And when I'm talking about those that made it possible for us to be here today, I'm talking about incarnates and discarnates alike. We can feel the presence of the benefactors that have been accompanying us, that have been helping us to prepare this event and actually to set the spiritual tone so that we could reach more people that are going through the pains of the soul. The pains of the soul was actually chosen because of what is happening today. Of course, unfortunately, pain is not new to us, and it has been well known through so many ages. But lately, it seems that because of the level of consciousness that we are acquiring, the more it feels that we are troubled by things that we at least have the intuition that are not in the right place. We want things, we look for things to see if they can fulfill us, but at the end of the day, we don't find this fulfillment and we do not know where to look and where to search for that. Anahy mentioned, for instance, this teaching from Jesus that we should love one another. And it's interesting because just this week I was listening to someone that was saying, we keep on talking that we are all brothers and sisters, but at the end of the day, when we look to one another, what we try to do first is to try to see the differences that person has in relation with you. Instead of looking for everything that connects us, we try to pinpoint what that person has that is different from me and that perhaps is not going to be helping me. we talked about, Marcia introduced us, this about the questions on suicide, and why do we think about that? Why do people decide to go through, this this action? Because of the pains of the soul. And we are talking a lot about abortion lately as well. And we would say that many people actually will think about that, not only because, and we have to think about it, not only because, for a more mundane reason, they don't want to have a child, but because they don't want to put a child in this world. So many people we will hear saying these things as well. So how can we change this perspective? How can we try to work with the tools that we have and not to be swallowed by them, in the sense that I'm going to let all the pains, all adversity completely drown me, and I'm not going to be able to breathe. So this is what our conversation is all about. And I mean, all the everything that we are bringing now. We look around, we walk on down the streets, and we see the pain. We breathe the pain. We perceive the energy. And we understand why the spirits are each time more calling us to do that. I think because of really a blessing from the spirit, this year I was able to visit the houses of three great names in the psychology field, which was Viktor Frankl, Sigmund Freud, and Carl Gustav Jung. And when I got into Freud's house, it's impossible not to perceive the psychosphere of the place. The walls scream the pain of the patients, the pain that was through there, the first experiments, the way of start connecting us with our subconscious level, the pain of the Holocaust when we are talking about Viktor Frankl, and the pain in a way that in his private office, Carl Gustav Jung has a window, a mosaic window, that it was done because he committed that to be done to in this private office that depicts the scenes from the crucifixion. Because according to him, for us to go through this process of getting to know ourselves is basically like going to this very painful path to the crucifixion of the ego, so that you can resurrect in self. So this is the reason why, of course, we will not have all the answers, right? Because if that was the case, oh my God, no, it would be here. We would just be spreading that. But what can we do to understand, to accept, and still to see life with optimism? And finally, before I give to my colleagues, I also wanted to acknowledge the opportunity that has been given to us by Divaldo Franco, Mansão do Caminho, and of course, Leo Publisher, because their work and the books that we have available today has tremendously, helped this work that we are doing, that we are trying to do, become a possibility, become a reality. and and it's the basis of all our work through Joanna de Angelis.
So I think we're ready for the next slide, just to prepare, because here we're going to talk about what have we learned. What have we learned? And before I ask you, Anahy, I want to just, for the audience, on site or virtually, we talk a lot about things. So let me just make sure that I understand. So Freud, mind, Jung, psyche or soul, and Joanna, the spirit. Great concepts, right? For us to start to see how it peels back to the spirit. Number two, and I mentioned several people that are amazingly comfortable and familiar to us, but may not be for everybody. But who is Joanna de Angelis? She's a spiritual author, right, and mentor of Divaldo Pereira Franco, who is a medium that lives in Brazil. And if you don't know him, please check him out. It's amazing the work that he continues to do at a quite advanced age, in his mid-90s, beyond mid-90s. He also mentioned Chico Xavier, who is Francisco Cândido Xavier, the most well-known medium in Brazil. He has passed, but he's somebody that if you don't know him, you must know. And through his mediumship, we have spiritual authors talking to us. We talked about Emmanuel and Andrea Luiz. I think I checked it all out. So, but we talked a lot about things here, Jussara, and I wanted to ask Anahy.
I forgot to say anything about Kardec.
You didn't, but we'll get there. Don't worry.
No,
Don't worry.
Yeah, just very quickly, because it's so obvious, how sensitive Kardec is to our pains. That the longest chapter that we have in the Gospel according to Spiritism is "Blessed are the afflicted," with so many lessons and communications from the spirits and development of the reasoning from Kardec, and the of course everything is starting from Jesus, just to give this comfort to our souls in terms of what we have to face during our lifetime here on earth.
So Kardec wrote the Gospel according to Spiritism. If you don't know, I would urge you to get it, to familiarize with the content. But most importantly, I think it's chapter 5. Yeah, chapter 5, Blessed are the afflicted, which is a source of tremendous comfort to all of us. And I think I want to say this topic is not so hard for us, the pains of the soul, right? Because the news is we all are going through some sort of pain. It is something that is quite universal and so quite easy to speak about. But back to, thank you for talking about Kardec. And I wanted to, what have we learned? And Anahy, we talked a little bit about personal unconscious, collective unconscious. We also talk about atavistic heritage, right? Or we try to. But I want to know, what is our role, Anahy? What is our role to address the pains of the soul? How do we contribute to this immense sea of pain and suffering that exists, and the memory of it all that we carry in our collective unconscious?
So, as a good Jungian, I will start from the end, not from the beginning. We are like this in a circular way. But as I was telling you about the transpersonal dimension of the psyche, when we say that we are all one, we are all children of the transcendent one, of God. What does that mean? And why do we even have pains of the soul? If we are his, her, because it's, of course, there is no gender in the transcendent one. So this unity, we are part, all of us are part of this unity. So why do we have pains of the soul in the first place to start with? Okay, we are beings of light, right? We know that we can vibrate in different ways according to our spiritual evolution. But Emmanuel says to Chico Xavier, and I like very much that materialism would die for lack of matter. I love this sentence. And we are getting there. Of course, we are in these days in a paradox all over the globe, because if we look, we have never been so materialist as society, needing things, needing objects, struggling, working a lot to get things physically, right? But at the same point, there is all this movement, it's happening together, that we are developing as, I think, in a, really quantic way, really fast way. We are like in a spiritual awakening of humanity. A lot of people, I talk to a lot of people, and I'm doing a research actually in partnership with United States, but I will tell you that later. We are researching anomalous experiences, the spiritual experiences. And what we have already collected of data, a lot of people have spiritual experiences, okay? Telepathic, mediumistic, and visions, and what we call numinous experiences, experiences of the sacred, but they won't tell anyone many times because they are afraid that people will call them crazy if they don't have an understanding, a culture, a family, a religion that can give some kind of container to this experience. They simply won't say anything, especially, unfortunately, to medical doctors that are, to this day, a lot of the medical field is changing, but to this day, they are we call medicine based in evidence. I will be talking a lot about that in the afternoon. So, which means for a lot of my colleagues that you just have to ask for exams, the machines, blood testing, this and that, and you will get to a diagnosis. And okay, we know that that's not the case. So, because we are talking about the spirit, and to this day, a lot of psychiatrists that still believe that our minds are a product of our brains. And we know that studying near-death experiences, death-bed visions, anomalous experiences, that, and I agree with Jung as a psychiatrist, that it's not the brain that produces the mind, is the spirit, and the mind is part of the spirit that uses the brain. Okay, so this changes everything, and I'm quite sure when the research that are being doing in this past 40 years and are accelerating a lot in this field, it's going to prove the spirit, as Emmanuel tells Chico Xavier in the earliest 19, so the past century, before even the Second World War. So we are getting there to this point that materialism would end because of lack of matter. And we are talking about that now. We are listening to each other as we have, as spiritists, with our souls, with our higher self, let's say, with our higher consciousness. So we can see each other in a body of flesh here, in our personalities, and we get anxious, and we try to do the best we can with our egos, but at the same time, At the same time, people, we are, especially in these days of transition of humankind to another level of vibration, we are each time more talking with our and feeling and perceiving things and relating to each other as in our beautiful young instrument and a musician here was playing the piano. Thank you so much for that. Because we know that the music, and especially the higher created music, right? The classicals, they immediately send us to another vibration, to the vibration of the spirit. By the way, that's all this music. And I have young people that work with me, and also I have a daughter and a son, and they say, "Mother, if you say that, you are going to be canceled. If you say that, you are going to be canceled." But what can I say? Classicals are classicals. So we know that they send us to another vibration. Okay. So what I wanted to, for instance, music. If we have pain of the soul, we don't have even to consider Freud and Jung and all. We have just to connect, and that's Joanna. Even a lot of people start reading Joanna and say, wow, that's so difficult, because she uses a lot of Jungian terms. That's why we teach a lot of Jung before even reading Joanna, so that people can understand the concept of the self, the collective unconscious, and this and that, and what, coming back to your question, the atavic, so our inheritance as in humans. But so we don't even have to understand that much. We just have to start reading and asking Joanna and the mentors for help, and going ahead and believing that all this knowledge is not outside of us. Joanna is simply, and I know that Divaldo would agree with me, I can feel that Joanna and Divaldo would agree, that they are awakening our souls to a knowledge that it's not, don't have to go all through medical school or psychology school, or even read all the books. You have just start reading to rekindle the sparkle of light and understanding and wisdom that we have within our souls, our psyche. Why? Because of what Jussara was saying, that Allan Kardec brings to us. We are evolving spirits, so we bring to this life a lot of knowledge, but of course returning to the pains of the soul, um, a lot, or we can say to a lot to some people, less to others, but we all go through sufferings in this life, because our ego, to start with, suffers to adapt in this life, and suffers also the childhood experiences. We all have traumas. Because our parents were not perfect, we are not perfect. We are going to get there some point, the archangels, in some way in our evolutions, but it's not yet. So, of course, we have pains. And our culture, that is so materialistic, in this paradox that I was telling about, provides a lot more pain. The social media, for the young people that are here, we have a lot of research in psychiatry that are showing that give a lot of pain, the social medias, to especially to adolescents and young people. Why? Because it calls for the ego to try to achieve something that many times it's not interesting to that person particularly. And even, for instance, a musician like our wonderful Gabriel here was playing the piano. I'm quite sure he wouldn't like, as a lot of teenagers in Brazil, to be looking at some, silly things in the Instagram or whatever, and agree with everybody, give likes, because you have to be popular in Instagram or whatever, Facebook, this and that, because it gives pain in the soul. I'm worried about other stuff. It's not because I'm a teenager or I'm a child that I'm not a very old spirit many, many times, much older than sometimes we that are old in the flesh, right? And so this is very important that the culture recognize these wonderful souls that are arriving to help us in this transition. And if we get stuck in this materialistic world, then we give them pains in the soul. And we give ourselves pains in the soul. Because as Joanna says, and Marcia was telling us, we all bring issues that we're supposed to work through this life. Integrate, we say. We bring pieces of shadows, okay? Is a Jungian concept, the shadow. And Joanna talks a lot about that, expanding this concept. So we all bring pieces of shadows, let's say that makes easier for us, that causes pains in our souls. Is this shadow within all of us that cause all those shadows, that cause the pains of the soul, that are the cause. So our main purpose for reincarnation in psychological and spiritual way of thinking is to illuminate these shadows, to integrate them. Let's go back to Jesus. So to love ourselves with self-compassion, with forgiving ourselves, and also, as Jussara was saying, accepting. That's difficult for the ego. That's the symbol of the cross. Okay, different forces pulling us to, separate places. I talk too much and I wanted my colleagues to, but we can go further on that. So this is a very suffering state for the ego to create this consciousness about ourselves. That's why Jesus, to summarize, was saying, love yourself, understand yourself, forgive yourself, accept yourself, even your shadow aspects. Because if you do that, your light will get stronger.
Thank you. We have 5 minutes. Jussara, can you wrap it up? And can you move to the last slide so that all of you can see, and I know it's small print, but those are all the references in Joanna's collection, as well as the nucleus of psychological studies. It's in Portuguese only, apologies. 2 books, as well as the new book, also in Portuguese, just published, Novos Rumos. Those are amazing resources just on this topic. So we can leave it there. Go ahead, Jussara, if you can wrap it up.
Yeah, I was thinking while I was talking that I'll have to correct myself, because I said that there is no easy recipe for us to eliminate the pains of the soul. And actually there is one that Jesus taught us more than 2,000 years ago, which is love one another. So this is our goal, to love one another. But to love one another starts with the love of ourselves. And I think that every time we go astray in this path of understanding true fraternity, that we are brothers and sisters, and understanding that we are children of God, and start looking and pinpointing differences in other cultures, in other people, and trying to look for things that will set us apart instead of putting us together, we are going to be going through this path of experiencing pain, because we have not achieved yet the meeting of our own self. Because when we go to the self, as we were explaining, understanding the soul. And understanding the soul, like Jung talks about, from the perspective of the spirit. So while I have a goal which is to reach this stage in humanity, and I'm not going through that the way I should, I will be experiencing the pains that are the result of my poor choices, of me eliminating possibilities of learning and growing because I have prejudices. I think that this is not good for me. This is not the right way of conducting myself. This is not the right food. This is not the right language. This is not the right behavior. And the more we experiencing ourselves, the pains, we have in this case, by not going in a straight line, we choose to us a different path that will incline us to become more sympathetic to the pains of others, to have compassion. So I don't want to go in a straight line through the line of love. I will have to go through the line of compassion, meaning what? I feel the pains myself. And when I feel the pain and someone comes to me and reports that they are going through the same kind of troubles, the same kind of challenges, I know what they're talking about. I can sympathize. I can have compassion to them. So we can go in a straight line, or we can go, through this path that it is still very painful to us. And one thing that Joana de Angelis talking, actually several of those books, and just chapters, is how we should strive to have a more positive view of life. It's very much like when when we are looking, we look at life or at things that are happening, and we see it from a negative perspective or from a positive perspective. So when I'm going through those challenges, I will say, okay, this is going to be helping me to be more sympathetic to the pains of others. This will help me grow. And, and we all know people that look outside and complains because it's raining, complain because it's cold, complain because it's a sunny day. So this is what Joana de Angelis is telling us here, to make an assessment of things, to make an assessment of ourselves and our lives, and start thinking more about the positive aspects of our lives. Let not give or put all our energy in what is not right now.
Thank you.
Because there are so many beautiful things.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to hear from you, and I'd like to invite our colleague, Leo Vieira, to come to the podium. I'll join you in just a second. And wanted to just maybe, if I may, compliment what we're saying. We're not idolizing Joanna, right? But if you think in terms of Jesus is the foundation, right? Freud is perhaps the ground floor, Jung are the walls, and Joanna comes and she puts the roof, and she integrates all those teachings and makes it very easy for, at least it is for me, to start to delve into very complex topics. I invite all of you to listen to these two amazing women, be on the guests to our weekly podcast, is every Friday. So, but with that, I'm going to excuse myself. Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to give you a message. 30 minutes.
Yes.
30 seconds, sorry.
Yeah.
But this is a Freudian slip. So I just wanted to, a sentence that I synchronistically, I listened this morning. And I want to leave it with you because we also in many of the podcasts, we have Anne Sinclair from the UK with us. And I love when she says, for me, Joana de Angelis is a light teacher. And a light teacher is a non-dual teacher. when we achieved these teachings of the spirit, not only of the ego and not only of the psyche. Oh, and so I just wanted to give you this sentence that I listened this morning, that we are not a drop in the ocean. We are the ocean in a drop. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.